Hi everyone, and welcome back. If you're here, that means you're ready to dive into part 2 of this Alpha Werewolf Shifter Romance audiobook. First of all, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'm so excited to continue sharing this story with you. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, no worries. You can pause here, head down to the description, and start from the beginning. I've linked part 1 for a smooth continuation, so you won't miss a thing. Once you've caught up, you can jump right back into this video for part 2 of this Werewolf Shifter Romance audiobook. And for those of you who've already watched part 1, welcome back. This is where things get even more exciting. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's pick up right where we left off. Without further ado, let's continue the story of this Werewolf Shifter Romance audiobook. Here's Part 2. Chapter 21. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon when Logan pulled the Jeep into the clearing. The familiar sight of the cabin should have brought a sense of relief, but a sickly tension lingered in the air. Logan's sharp senses picked up on it immediately, the faint, acrid scent of rogue shifters mingling with the pine and damp earth. Hannah noticed his sudden stillness. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tight. Logan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Stay here." He climbed out of the Jeep, his movements controlled but deliberate, and surveyed the area. The cabin door hung ajar, the frame splintered. Inside, the air was heavy with the metallic tang of blood and destruction. Hannah couldn't sit still. Ignoring Logan's warning, she followed him to the doorway, her breath catching at the sight inside. The once cozy interior was in shambles. Furniture lay overturned, the table was split in two, and claw marks marred the walls. The faint scent of burnt wood hinted at an attempt to light the fireplace, but it hadn't been for warmth. "Logan." Hannah's voice wavered as she stepped inside, his jaw clenched as he surveyed the destruction. "They were here." She moved closer to him, her gaze falling on a message scrawled across the wall in deep crimson strokes. "She belongs to us." The words sent a chill racing down Hannah's spine. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means Cade isn't just playing games anymore," Logan said, his voice low and edged with fury. "He's making it personal." Max arrived moments later, his expression grim as he stepped inside. "This wasn't just an ambush," he said, his sharp eyes scanning the room. "They wanted to send a message." Logan's fists tightened, his claws threatening to extend. "Well, they've got mine." The three of them worked to assess the damage. Max found traces of rogue tracks leading back into the forest, and Hannah discovered that most of their supplies had been destroyed or taken. But it wasn't just the physical loss that weighed on Logan. It was the psychological blow. Cade wasn't just targeting him. He was dismantling his sanctuary, his resources, and his resolve, piece by piece. "This isn't random," Max said as they regrouped outside. "Cade knows exactly how to get under your skin, Kane. And he's just getting started." Logan didn't respond immediately, his eyes fixed on the darkening woods. Later, as they sat around a small campfire outside the ravaged cabin, Logan finally spoke. "Cade's been one step ahead of us this entire time. He's not just running a rogue pack, he's building an army. And he knows exactly how to use them." Hannah leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly together. "You said you knew Cade before. What happened?" Logan hesitated, the weight of the question settling over him. "Cade was part of my pack once," he said finally. "Before he went rogue, he was a beta, strong, loyal, or so I thought. But he wanted more. When I became alpha, he challenged me." Hannah's eyes widened. "And you won?" "I had to," Logan said, his voice flat. "He left, but he didn't go quietly. He's been holding a grudge ever since, and now he's using it to fuel this war." Max threw another log on the fire, his gaze shifting between Logan and Hannah. "If Cade knows your past, he'll exploit it. That message on the wall? It's not just a threat, it's a warning." Hannah frowned. "A warning for what?" Max exhaled heavily. That he's not done with you, Logan, and he's not done with her either. Logan's chest tightened at the implication. The thought of Cade laying a hand on Hannah was enough to make his wolf stir with rage. Hannah, for her part, refused to be intimidated. "Then we need to stop waiting for him to strike," she said, her voice steady despite the fear she felt. "We need to fight back." Logan looked at her, surprised by her determination. "You're already in this too deep, Hannah. If Cade thinks he can scare me into giving up, he's wrong," she interrupted, her gaze locking onto his. "I'm not going to let him take away what little control I have left." Logan's heart swelled with equal parts admiration and worry. "You're stronger than you realize," he said quietly. "And you're stronger than you give yourself credit for," she countered. The night stretched on as they discussed their next move. Cade's forces were tightening their grip on the city, targeting Logan's allies and spreading chaos. "We need to regroup with the pack," Max said. "If there's a traitor, we'll root them out. And we need numbers if we're going to take Cade down." Logan nodded, though the weight of the decision pressed heavily on him. Protecting Hannah, leading his pack, and confronting Cade all at once felt like an impossible burden, but it was one he couldn't ignore. As the fire crackled softly, Logan met Hannah's gaze. Her quiet strength steadied him, even as the weight of what lay ahead threatened to pull him under. "We'll stop him," Logan said, his voice filled with quiet determination, "no matter what it takes." Chapter 22. The moon hung low in the sky, its silvery glow muted by thick clouds that mirrored the tension within Logan. The air felt heavy as he entered the dimly lit meeting room in his pack's territory. His most trusted members gathered around the large wooden table, their faces marked with exhaustion and worry. Max leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, while Hannah lingered in the corner, her presence unassuming but impossible to ignore. Logan's sharp gaze scanned the room, landing on each face as if trying to extract the truth without words. "Something's not adding up," Max said, breaking the uneasy silence. "Cade's been a step ahead of us at every turn. That doesn't happen by chance." Logan nodded grimly, which means someone's feeding him information. The room grew deathly quiet. Hannah's pulse quickened as she watched the pack members shift uncomfortably in their seats. She could feel Logan's frustration radiating off him, a simmering heat that threatened to boil over. "Whoever it is," Logan said, his voice dangerously calm, "has put every single one of us at risk, and when I find them, there won't be any second chances." The threat hung in the air like a blade, its edge sharp and unforgiving. Hannah took a cautious step forward. What if they're doing it because they're scared?" Logan turned to her, his gaze softening slightly. "Scared doesn't excuse betrayal, but it explains it," she countered. "Cade's dangerous. If someone thought they could protect themselves or their family by helping him—" She trailed off, her voice hesitant but resolute. Max snorted. "Still doesn't make it right." Before Logan could respond, the door creaked open, and a young pack member named Sean stepped inside, his face pale and his movements hesitant. "What is it, Sean?" Logan asked, his tone sharp. Sean hesitated, then blurted, "It's Nick. He's gone, and I found this." He held out a folded piece of paper, which Logan snatched up. The room waited in tense silence as he unfolded it, his eyes scanning the hastily scrawled words. "Cade offered me a way out. I'm sorry." The growl that erupted from Logan was low and guttural, his wolf surging dangerously close to the surface. "Coward," Max muttered, shaking his head. "Nick's been with us for years." "And now he's with Cade," Logan said through gritted teeth. "He's not just a traitor. He's a weapon Cade can use against us." The realization hit hard, the weight of it settling heavily on everyone in the room. Hours later, Logan, Max, and Hannah found themselves in the heart of the city where chaos was brewing. The rogues had launched a public attack at a bustling park, their actions reckless and brazen. Logan weaved through the panicked crowd, his heightened senses guiding him as he searched for the source of the chaos. Beside him, Hannah struggled to keep up, her determination outweighing her fear. "Stay close," Logan barked, glancing back at her. "I'm not going anywhere," she shot back, gripping her small blade tightly. The fight broke out in a whirlwind of snarls and flashes of claws. Logan's focus was razor-sharp as he engaged the rogues, his movements a seamless blend of power and precision. Hannah held her ground, defending a group of civilians who had been cornered near a fountain. Her heart raced, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. One rogue lunged at her, its eyes wild and its claws outstretched. Hannah ducked and thrust her blade upward, catching it in the side. It yelped and stumbled, giving Logan just enough time to intervene and finish it off. "You okay?" Logan asked, his voice tight with concern. She nodded, her breath coming in short gasps. "I'm fine. Keep going." By the time the rogues retreated, the park was littered with debris, and the air was thick with the scent of blood and fear. Logan stood amidst the chaos, his chest heaving as he surveyed the damage. "We saved them," Hannah said quietly, her voice tinged with both relief and exhaustion. "For now," Logan replied, his tone grim. But this was just a message. Cade's not done. As they returned to the jeep, Logan's shoulders sagged under the weight of his responsibilities. He couldn't shake the image of Nick's betrayal, or the knowledge that Cade's attacks were growing bolder. Hannah placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "We'll figure it out, Logan. You're not alone in this." Her words stirred something deep within him, a mix of gratitude, admiration, and something he wasn't ready to name. "I hope you're right," he said softly, his gaze meeting hers, because as much as Logan wanted to believe they could win, the storm on the horizon was darker than ever. Chapter 23. The rain came down in relentless sheets, drumming against the roof of the temporary shelter Logan had secured for the night. Inside, the dim light from a single lantern flickered across the walls, throwing shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe like the turmoil in Logan's chest. Hannah stood near the window, her arms crossed as she gazed out into the storm. The tension between them was almost suffocating, an invisible barrier neither had crossed since returning from the city. "You should have stayed behind," Logan muttered, his voice low but laced with frustration. Hannah turned, her brow furrowing. "We've been over this, Logan. I'm not just going to sit on the sidelines while you—" "This isn't about what you want," Logan snapped, his sharp tone cutting through the air like a blade. Hannah recoiled, her eyes widening in shock. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that every time you put yourself in danger, you make things harder for me, for the pack, for everyone," Logan growled, pacing the small space. "This is my fight, Hannah, not yours." Her chest tightened, anger and hurt swirling within her. "So what? You're blaming me for all of this? For the rogues? For Cade?" Logan stopped, his back to her, his shoulders tense. "I'm saying you're the reason they're coming after us." The words hung in the air, heavy and unforgiving. Hannah took a step forward, her voice trembling but strong. "You think I don't know that? You think I haven't been blaming myself for everything? For dragging you into this mess? For putting your pack in danger?" Her voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't ask for any of this, Logan." Logan turned to face her, guilt flashing across his face. "Hannah, Save it," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "You want me to stay out of your way, fine. But don't you dare act like I'm the only one struggling here." Hannah grabbed her jacket and stormed out into the rain, leaving Logan standing in the silence she'd left behind. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within him, each clap of thunder echoing the turmoil in his mind. He sank onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. Why did I say that? Hours passed before Hannah returned, drenched and shivering but with a determined look in her eyes. She dropped a soaked file folder onto the table, the papers inside protected by a plastic cover. "What's this?" Logan asked, his voice hoarse. "Information," she said simply, peeling off her wet jacket. "About Marcus and about Cade." Logan stared at her, stunned. I found a storage locker registered in Marcus's name, she explained. It was filled with documents, photos, records, all of it pointing to his connection with Cade. He wasn't just a part of their operation, he was funding it. Logan's jaw tightened as he sifted through the papers. Each page was a piece of a puzzle he hadn't realized was missing. Maps of rogue territories, receipts for shipments of weapons, and notes that hinted at deeper plans. "You shouldn't have gone there alone," Logan said finally, his voice quieter now. Hannah's gaze softened, but her tone remained firm. "Maybe not, but I couldn't sit here and do nothing." Logan looked at her, the weight of his earlier words pressing on him. "You were right. About everything." Hannah's eyes widened slightly, surprised by his admission. "I've been pushing you away because I'm scared," Logan admitted, his voice raw. "Scared of losing you, of failing, of becoming the kind of leader Cade always said I'd be." The confession hung between them, raw and unguarded. Hannah stepped closer, her voice gentle but unwavering. "You're not him, Logan, and you're not alone in this. Stop acting like you have to carry it all by yourself." For the first time, Logan let himself believe her. That night, as the storm raged outside, Logan sat by the fire, staring into the flames. His mind drifted to the past, to the moment everything with Cade had unraveled. Years ago, when Logan had first become Alpha, Cade had been his closest ally. They'd fought together, bled together, and built the pack into something strong. But Cade's ambition had poisoned him, turning loyalty into resentment. The memory of their final confrontation was seared into Logan's mind. Cade's challenge for dominance, the brutal fight that had left both of them scarred, and the betrayal that had followed. Logan shook off the memory, the flames in the hearth dancing like echoes of the past. He couldn't change what had happened with Cade, but he could control what came next. Hannah joined him by the fire, her presence a quiet comfort. "We'll figure this out," she said softly. "Together." Logan looked at her, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. "I'm starting to think I might actually believe that." Hannah smiled faintly, and for the first time in a long while, Logan felt a flicker of hope. Chapter 24. The faint hum of conversation filled the room as Logan surveyed the gathered group. The old barn served as a temporary meeting place, its rustic interior transformed into a war room. Maps, dossiers, and hastily drawn diagrams were spread across a large wooden table, illuminated by the glow of a single overhead bulb. Max stood at one end of the table, gesturing to a detailed map pinned to the wall. The faces surrounding them were a mix of resolve and exhaustion, what was left of Logan's loyal pack members. "This is it," Max said, his voice firm. "Cade's main stronghold. If we can take it out, we cripple his entire operation." Logan nodded, his arms crossed. "We need precision, no unnecessary risks, no surprises." A voice broke through the quiet tension. "And what about me?" All eyes turned to Hannah, who stood at the edge of the room, her expression calm but determined. Logan's chest tightened. "You're staying out of it," he said, his tone brooking no argument. Hannah stepped closer, her gaze locking onto his. "Like hell I am." The group exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the storm brewing between them. "I've already found information that you missed," Hannah continued, "and I'm not going to sit around while you put yourself in danger to clean up a mess I helped create." Logan's jaw clenched. "This isn't about blame, Hannah. It's about keeping you alive." "And what about keeping everyone else alive?" she countered. "The more people working on this, the better chance we have." Max cleared his throat. "She's got a point, Kane. Her research led us here. She knows the connections we didn't see." Logan shot him a sharp look. "You're not helping." Hannah stepped up to the table, her presence commanding attention. She pointed to the map. "Cade's using these routes to smuggle supplies. If we intercept one, we can cut off his resources and weaken his defenses before the main attack." One of the younger pack members nodded. "That could work. If we take out the supply line first, it'll force them to pull back their forces to regroup." Logan hated how much sense it made. He also hated the thought of Hannah being anywhere near a fight. You'd need a decoy, Hannah added. Someone to lure them away from the main supply route. That's too dangerous, Logan said immediately. Hannah crossed her arms. So is letting Cade keep the upper hand. Max stepped in, his voice a calming presence. She's right. We're not going to win this by playing it safe. If we can draw them out and split their forces, we have a shot. Logan's frustration simmered just below the surface. He turned to Hannah, his voice low. If you're coming, you follow my orders. No arguments. Hannah met his gaze, her expression unwavering. Deal. The group spent hours fine-tuning their plan. Hannah's insights proved invaluable, her sharp mind piecing together connections that had eluded even Max. As the meeting wound down, Logan pulled her aside, his expression a mix of concern and admiration. You didn't have to do this, he said quietly. Hannah tilted her head. Yes, I did. You might think you have to carry all of this alone, but you don't. Not anymore. Logan's chest tightened. I'm not used to relying on anyone. Maybe it's time you started, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. Later that night, as the team prepared for the mission, Logan found himself watching Hannah from across the room. She moved with quiet determination, checking over maps and talking with Max. His wolf stirred, torn between the instinct to protect her and the growing respect for her strength. You're falling for her, Max said, his voice low. Logan didn't respond immediately. Doesn't matter. She's not part of this world. Max smirked. She's more a part of it than you think, and she's tougher than you give her credit for. Logan sighed, running a hand through his hair. That's what I'm afraid of. By dawn, the team was ready. Logan stood at the head of the group, his presence commanding as he gave final instructions. This is it, he said. No mistakes, no hesitation. We move fast, and we finish this. The pack members nodded, their resolve clear. Hannah stood among them, her blade strapped to her side and a determined glint in her eyes. As they moved out, Logan fell into step beside her. Stay close, he said, his voice softer now. Always, she replied. Despite the looming danger, Logan felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, he wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting for something worth protecting. Chapter 25. The night was quiet. Too quiet, as Logan's team crept through the outskirts of Cade's stronghold, a sprawling industrial complex surrounded by dense forest. The faint hum of machinery echoed in the distance, a subtle reminder of the enemy's constant activity. Logan crouched behind a rusted metal container, his sharp eyes scanning the area. Beside him, Hannah knelt, clutching the compact communication device Max had handed her earlier. Despite her composed exterior, Logan could feel the nervous energy radiating from her. This is where you stay, Logan murmured, pointing to a concealed vantage point overlooking the facility's main entrance. Hannah frowned. You're putting me on lookout duty? Logan's gaze softened for a moment. It's not just lookout duty. We need eyes here, and I trust you to alert us if anything changes. Her expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before she nodded. Fine, but don't expect me to sit here if things go sideways. I wouldn't expect anything less, Logan said, a small, fleeting smirk playing on his lips. As the team moved deeper into the facility, Logan's thoughts remained on Hannah. Trusting her with this role had been a calculated decision, but it didn't stop the gnawing worry in his chest. She was smart, capable, but this wasn't her world, and he couldn't shake the fear of what might happen if she got caught in the crossfire. Max nudged him, snapping him out of his thoughts. You good? Logan nodded, his voice gruff. Let's move. Inside the facility, the air was thick with the scent of oil and metal, tinged with the unmistakable musk of rogues. The team split into pairs, silently navigating the maze of corridors as they planted small explosives designed to disable Cade's resources. Logan and Max reached the control room where stacks of monitors displayed live feeds from the compound's security cameras. This is it, Max muttered, setting up a device to override the system. Logan's sharp eyes scanned the monitors, his heart sinking, as he spotted a group of rogues patrolling the eastern perimeter, dangerously close to where Hannah was stationed. Back at her post, Hannah adjusted her position, her fingers tightening around the comm device. The rustling of leaves and faint hum of distant voices kept her on edge. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of her vision. She froze, her heightened senses picking up the faint scrape of boots on gravel. She pressed the comm device. "Logan, I've got movement near the east side. Looks like a patrol." "Hold your position." Logan's voice came through, steady but tense. "We're almost done here." Hannah swallowed hard. "Copy that." The patrol's path veered closer to her hiding spot. Hannah's pulse quickened as she realized they would spot her if she didn't act. With a deep breath, she slipped from her perch and circled around them, her movements silent and calculated. From her new position, she saw them heading straight for Logan's exit route. "Logan," she hissed into the comm. "They're heading your way. I'll draw them off." "No," Logan's voice snapped back. "Stay out of sight. That's an order." But Hannah was already moving. Logan's team was finishing their task when the sound of a rogue's snarl echoed down the corridor. Logan's heart dropped as he realized the sound wasn't coming from his direction. It was coming from Hannah's. "Damn it," he growled, breaking into a sprint. He found her in the eastern corridor, cornered by two rogues. One lunged for her, but Hannah ducked and drove her blade upward, the silver glinting as it struck home. Logan joined the fight, his claws tearing into the remaining rogue. The fight was over in seconds, but the sight of Hannah standing her ground, bloodied but defiant, left him stunned. "What the hell were you thinking?" Logan barked, his voice a mix of anger and worry. "I was thinking about saving your ass," Hannah shot back, her chest heaving. "You're welcome, by the way." Logan's wolf bristled at her defiance, but another part of him, the part that had grown to respect her strength, couldn't argue. "You did good," he admitted, his voice softening. "But you scared the hell out of me." Hannah's expression shifted, her eyes searching his. "Then maybe you should stop trying to do everything alone." As they regrouped with the others, Max handed Logan a small drive he'd retrieved from the control room. "This is it," Max said. "Cade's plans." Logan plugged the drive into a laptop, the screen filling with schematics, files, and notes. His stomach turned as he read through Cade's manifesto, a plan to dismantle the Shifter hierarchy by exposing their world to humanity and claiming dominance over both humans and wolves. "This isn't just a war," Logan muttered, his voice heavy with realization. "It's a coup." Hannah leaned over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. "He wants to tear everything down and rebuild it in his image," Logan said grimly. The weight of what they were up against settled over them like a storm cloud, but as Logan looked at his team, at Hannah, he felt the spark of hope. "We're not letting that happen," he said, his voice filled with quiet determination. And for the first time, he believed they might actually have a chance. Chapter 26. The cold night air stung Logan's face as he led the team through the narrow tunnels beneath the rogue's stronghold. The flickering light from Max's handheld lantern illuminated the damp, crumbling walls. Every step felt heavier than the last, the tension thick enough to suffocate. "We're almost there," Max whispered, his voice barely audible over the faint drip of water echoing through the passage. Logan nodded but didn't relax. His instincts screamed that something was wrong, though he couldn't pinpoint what. Hannah trailed behind him, her face pale but determined, her small blade clutched tightly in her hand. "Stay close." Logan. They emerged into a large underground chamber, where a cluster of crates and equipment confirmed that they'd found one of Cade's supply caches. The space reeked of oil, sweat, and something more pungent. Something primal. Logan signaled for the others to fan out and begin planting explosives. His eyes darted to Hannah, who stood by Max, helping him calibrate a timer. For a moment, if they succeeded tonight, Cade's operation would suffer a devastating blow, but hope was a dangerous thing. The first sign of trouble came as a low growl that seemed to reverberate through the chamber. Logan froze, his heightened senses flaring. "Get ready," he barked, his voice sharp and commanding. The growl grew louder, followed by the echoing sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and far too confident, Cade stepped into the light, flanked by a dozen rogue shifters. His scarred face twisted into a smirk, his golden eyes glinting with malice. "Well, well, Kane," Cade drawled, his voice a mocking purr. "Did you really think I wouldn't see this coming?" Logan's blood ran cold, but he didn't let it show. "You've gotten sloppy, Cade," he said, his tone razor-sharp. "If you think this changes anything, you're more delusional than I thought." Cade chuckled darkly, taking a step closer. "Oh, Logan, this isn't about stopping you. It's about proving a point. You can't protect them, not your pack, not her." His gaze shifted to Hannah, and Logan's wolf surged to the surface, a low growl rumbling from his chest. "Don't," Logan warned, his voice edged with a feral snarl. Cade grinned. "Touchy, aren't we?" The fight erupted in an instant. Logan launched himself at Cade, their bodies colliding with a bone-jarring impact, the chamber filled with the snarls and growls of shifters, the clang of weapons and the thud of bodies hitting the ground. Hannah fought beside Max, her movements quick and precise as she fended off a rogue that had broken through their line. Her blade caught the rogue's arm, but the force of its retaliation sent her stumbling back. "Hannah!" Logan roared, his distraction costing him as Cade landed a brutal punch to his ribs. The fight was chaos, but Cade was relentless, his strikes precise and punishing. Logan felt the burn of claws raking across his side, the metallic tang of blood filling his nose. "You're losing, Kane," Cade hissed, shoving him against the wall. "Just like you always do. You can't save them, and you can't save her." Logan's vision blurred, but he refused to fall. With a guttural growl, he surged forward, driving Cade back with a ferocity that bordered on desperation. Nearby, Hannah saw Logan struggling and made a split-second decision. Ignoring the chaos around her, she darted toward him, driving her blade into a rogue that had closed in on his blind side. "Logan!" she shouted, pulling him to his feet. His eyes locked on hers, a mix of gratitude and fear flashing across his face. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. "And yet, here I am," she shot back, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The team's position was crumbling. Max shouted an order to retreat, and Logan knew they had no choice. "Fall back!" Logan bellowed, grabbing Hannah's arm as they began to fight their way out. The retreat was brutal. By the time they emerged from the tunnels, Logan's body was screaming with pain, and blood seeped from multiple wounds. Max helped steady him as they reached the safety of the tree line. "We need to get him patched up," Max said, his tone grim. Hannah hovered close, her face pale but resolute. "We can't stop now. Cade's going to escalate this." Logan looked at her, the weight of her words hitting harder than the wounds on his body. She was right. Cade wasn't done, and neither were they. Chapter 27. The dim light of dawn crept through the cracks in the cabin's boarded-up windows, casting thin, pale streaks across the floor. Logan sat in the corner, his back against the rough wooden wall, his head bowed. Blood stained his shirt, seeping through the hastily bandaged wound on his side. The cabin was eerily silent except for the faint rustle of movement as the others tried to rest. Max sat at the table, his gaze heavy with concern, while Hannah lingered near the doorway, her arms crossed and her face a mask of frustration. "You need to let someone look at that," Hannah said, her voice breaking the silence. Logan didn't respond. "Logan," she said again, stepping closer, her tone sharper now, "ignoring me isn't going to make it better." "I'm fine," he muttered, his voice low and edged with irritation. Hannah's jaw tightened. "Fine? You can barely stand, and you're bleeding through your bandages. How is that fine?" He finally lifted his head, his golden eyes locking onto hers. The raw pain and guilt in his gaze made her breath catch. "Just drop it, Hannah," he said, his voice hard. "I don't need you hovering over me." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. "Hovering?" she said, her tone incredulous. "I'm trying to help you, Logan, but you're so damn stubborn you won't let anyone in." Logan pushed himself to his feet, wincing as pain lanced through his side. Maybe I don't want help. Maybe I don't deserve it. Hannah's chest tightened at his words, but she refused to back down. That's not your call to make. Max cleared his throat from the table, cutting through the rising tension. Hey, maybe we should take a breath here. Stay out of it, Max, Logan snapped, his sharp tone making the older wolf bristle. Max leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. Fine. Kill yourself trying to do everything alone. See how far that gets you. The cabin grew quiet again as Max retreated to the other room, leaving Logan and Hannah alone. Hannah stepped closer, her voice softening. Why are you doing this to yourself? Logan's jaw tightened. Because every decision I've made has gotten people hurt. Cade's always one step ahead because I'm not good enough. Stop, she interrupted, her voice firm but filled with emotion. You're not the problem, Logan. Cade. Her words struck a chord deep within him, but he couldn't bring himself to admit it. He turned away, his hands clenched into fists. You don't understand. Then make me understand, she said, her voice breaking. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're pushing away the very people who want to fight for you. Logan didn't answer. Instead, he walked past her, his heavy steps echoing in the silence. Hannah stood frozen, tears stinging her eyes. She wanted to scream, to shake him until he saw what he was doing to himself and to them. Instead, she sat down at the table, her mind racing with doubt. For the first time, she began to wonder if they could win this fight, or if Logan's guilt and isolation would destroy them before Cade ever could. That night, as the others slept, Logan sat alone by the dying fire. Memories of his past clawed at him. Cade's betrayal, the lives lost because of his decisions, the constant weight of being alpha. He stared into the embers, his wolf stirring uneasily beneath his skin. For years he'd convinced himself that distance was his only armor, but now that armor felt more like a cage. Logan buried his face in his hands, his body shaking with a mixture of rage and despair. He had no answers, only questions that gnawed at his soul. Was he strong enough to protect them? Or was Cade right, that he was doomed to fail? Chapter 28. The morning sunlight filtered through the battered curtains of the cabin, casting a pale glow across the room. Hannah sat cross-legged on the floor, a weathered file folder spread out before her. The documents inside were fragile, their edges yellowed with age, but what they contained was anything but benign. Her fingers trembled as she picked up a faded photograph of Marcus, her ex-boyfriend, standing beside a man she now recognized. Cade. The sight sent a chill down her spine, but it was the accompanying notes, written in Marcus's distinct scrawl, that made her breath hitch. Latent genetics confirmed. Subject H. Pierce. Hannah stared at the words, her heart pounding in her chest. Latent genetics? She flipped through the pages, scanning Marcus's detailed notes about experiments, blood tests, and terms she barely understood. One thing was clear, she wasn't just an ordinary human. Footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. She looked up as Logan entered the room, his expression weary but alert. You find something? He asked, his voice low. Hannah nodded, holding up the photograph. Marcus wasn't just involved with Cade, he was working for him, and they were targeting me. Logan's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. What do you mean targeting you? She handed him the notes, her voice trembling. He ran tests on me, genetic tests. According to this, I have latent shifter traits. Logan's grip on the paper tightened as he scanned the pages, his golden eyes narrowing. Cade's building a hybrid army, he muttered. And you're the missing piece. Hannah swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means Cade's not just trying to dismantle the shifter hierarchy, Logan said, his voice laced with tension. He's trying to rewrite it. If he can create hybrids, humans with shifter abilities under his control, he won't just rule the rogue packs. He'll dominate both our world and yours. The weight of his words settled over her like a storm cloud. And he needs me to do it. Logan set the papers down and knelt in front of her, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. "We won't let that happen." Hannah met his gaze, her voice trembling. "But what if he's right? What if I'm part of this plan, whether I want to be or not?" "You're not," Logan said firmly. "You're more than whatever Cade thinks he can use you for." Hannah wanted to believe him, but the doubt gnawed at her. She'd spent so long running from Marcus and his secrets, only to find herself in the middle of something even darker. Max entered the room, his sharp eyes scanning the tense scene. "What's going on?" Logan handed him the file. "Cade's been targeting humans with latent shifter genetics. Hannah's one of them." Max let out a low whistle, flipping through the documents. "This explains why he's been so focused on her, if he pulls this off." "He won't," Logan interrupted, his voice cold. Max raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? Because right now he's got the upper hand." The room fell into a tense silence. Logan's fists clenched at his sides, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He'd failed to see the full scope of Cade's plan, and now Hannah was at the center of it. Hannah broke the silence, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. "What's the next step?" Logan looked at her, surprise flickering across his face. "The next step is keeping you safe." "No," she said firmly. "The next step is stopping Cade. If I'm the key to his plan, we need to use that against him." Max smirked. "I like her. She's got guts." Logan shot him a glare before turning back to Hannah. "This isn't a game, Hannah. If he gets his hands on you—" "He won't," she interrupted, stepping closer. "Because you'll stop him. We'll stop him." Logan stared at her, the determination in her eyes cutting through his fear. For a moment the room felt smaller, the world outside quieter. "All right," he said finally, his voice low, "but we do this on my terms." As the group began to strategize, Logan couldn't shake the nagging doubt in the back of his mind. The stakes had never been higher, and the thought of losing Hannah, to Cade or to the darker parts of herself, was a possibility he wasn't sure he could face. But as he watched her dive into the plan with unwavering resolve, he realized something else. She wasn't just someone to protect. She was his equal, his partner, and the one person who might save them all. Chapter 29. The late afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the clearing where Logan stood alone. The distant hum of the forest seemed muted, swallowed by the weight of his thoughts. His battered body ached, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil in his chest. He stared at the ground, fists clenched at his sides. The file Hannah had uncovered sat heavy in his jacket pocket, its damning truths etched into his mind. Cade's plan, his twisted vision of a hybrid army, revolved around her, Hannah, and Logan? He had failed her. "Logan?" Hannah's voice broke through the silence, soft but tinged with unease. She stood at the edge of the clearing, hesitant but resolute. He didn't turn to face her. "You shouldn't be here." She took a step closer, her brows furrowing. "Neither should you." "What are you doing out here?" "Thinking," he said flatly. "About what?" Logan exhaled sharply, finally turning to meet her gaze. "About how I'm done." The words hit her like a slap. "What do you mean, done?" "This fight. Cade, all of it," Logan said, his voice hollow. "It's over. I'm walking away." Hannah's chest tightened as her breath caught. "He can't be serious." I am, he said, his tone sharp now. "I've done everything I can and it's never enough. Cade's always ahead. I can't protect you or the pack or anyone. All I'm doing is making it worse." "That's not true," she said, her voice shaking. "You've fought harder than anyone." "And for what?" Logan snapped, cutting her off. "To lose? To watch everyone I care about get hurt or killed?" He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "I won't do it anymore." Hannah stepped closer, desperation rising in her voice. "So what? You're just going to leave? Let Cade win? Let him use me to—" To create whatever monster army he's planning? Logan flinched at her words, but his expression remained guarded. If I'm not here, maybe you'll leave you alone. Maybe you'll have a chance to disappear, to live. Her anger flared. And what about the others? Your pack? Your allies? Are you just going to abandon them too? Logan's silence was answer enough. Tears welled in Hannah's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You're wrong, she said fiercely. You haven't failed. You're the reason we've made it this far, the reason we still have a chance. Logan shook his head, the walls around him closing in. You don't get it, Hannah. Every step I take, someone pays the price. I won't let that happen to you. Her voice cracked with emotion. But you will if you leave. If you give up now, you're letting Cade win. He turned away, his broad shoulders slumping. Maybe that's all I'm good for. Hannah stared at him, her heart breaking. I thought you were better than this, she said quietly. Logan froze, the words cutting deeper than any wound. You're not just some lone wolf, she continued, her voice trembling. You're a leader. You're someone I believe in. The silence that followed was deafening. Logan didn't look at her, couldn't bear to see the pain in her eyes. Later, as dusk fell, Max found Logan sitting on the cabin's porch, staring out into the darkening woods. You look like hell, Max said, dropping into the chair beside him. Thanks, Logan muttered. Max lit a cigarette, exhaling a plume of smoke. Hannah's pissed, you know. Can't say I blame her. Logan didn't respond, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Max sighed, leaning back. You've always been your own worst enemy, Kane. Always too damn proud to let anyone help you. Not now, Max, Logan warned. No, you're going to hear this, Max shot back. Because you're not just screwing yourself over, you're screwing all of us. You think walking away is going to fix things? It won't. Cade's not going to stop, and you know it. Logan's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. What the hell do you want me to do, Max? Keep fighting and watch more people die? I want you to stop feeling sorry for yourself, Max said bluntly. You're the alpha. Start acting like it. Logan glared at him, his wolf stirring beneath his skin, but before he could respond, Max tossed something onto the table between them. A small, blood-stained envelope. What's this? Logan asked, warily. Cade's latest message, Max said grimly. He's playing games and he's winning because you're too busy wallowing to fight back. Logan opened the envelope, his stomach turning as he read the words scrawled inside. You can't protect her, she'll always be mine. His vision blurred with rage, the wolf within him roaring to the surface. Cade's taunts weren't just words. They were a challenge, a declaration of war. Max leaned forward, his voice low. You want to quit? Fine. But if you do, don't expect anyone to clean up your mess. Logan stared at the note, his mind racing. He couldn't deny the truth any longer. Walking away wouldn't save anyone. It would only guarantee their destruction. Chapter 30. The sun was beginning to set, streaks of orange and purple bleeding into the sky, as Logan stood by the cabin window, his hands braced against the sill. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the losses, the impossible odds, pressed down on him like an iron shackle. Behind him, the muffled sounds of the group preparing for what could be their final stand drifted through the room. He heard Max barking orders, the clatter of weapons being sorted, and the occasional murmured conversation, but none of it mattered, not if he couldn't lead them. Logan, Hannah's voice cut through the haze, soft yet firm. He didn't turn. Don't shut me out, she said, stepping closer. I'm not shutting you out, Logan muttered, his tone weary. I'm trying to think. You've been thinking all day, Hannah replied, her voice rising slightly, but it looks a lot more like giving up. Logan's fists clenched against the windowsill. You don't understand. Then make me understand, she snapped, her frustration spilling over. Logan finally turned, his golden eyes sharp with a mix of anger and despair. I've failed them, Hannah, over and over again. Cade's always one step ahead, and every decision I make puts more lives at risk. How am I supposed to lead them when I can't even trust myself? Hannah's chest tightened at the raw pain in his voice, but she refused to back down. You think you're the only one who's scared? The only one who feels like they're in over their head? We are all terrified, Logan, but we're still here. Because of you. He shook his head. You don't get it. If I make one more mistake? You saved me, she interrupted, her voice trembling. Back in that alley, when I was running from Marcus? You saved me. And you've been saving people ever since. You've made mistakes, sure, but you've also kept this pact together, given them hope when they had none. That matters, Logan. You matter. Her words hit like a punch to the chest, stealing the air from his lungs. Hannah stepped closer, her voice softening. You're not supposed to do this alone. You have Max, you have the pack, and you have me. Stop acting like you have to carry it all by yourself. Logan's gaze dropped, his defenses crumbling under the weight of her words. I don't know if I can do it, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. You can, she said, her hand reaching out to rest on his arm. Because you already have, and we'll do it together. The door creaked open, and Max entered, his expression unreadable. Am I interrupting? Hannah stepped back, but her gaze didn't waver from Logan's. Not really, Logan muttered. Max leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. Good, because I've got something to say. Logan arched an eyebrow. You're not exactly the motivational speech type. Max smirked. Don't get used to it. The older wolf straightened, his expression turning serious. You're not the first alpha to feel like you've screwed up, Logan. Hell, I've made more mistakes than I can count. But the difference between a good leader and a bad one is what they do after they screw up. You think Cade's better than you because he's always one step ahead? He's not. He's just willing to burn everything down to get what he wants. But you've got something he doesn't. Logan frowned. What's that? People who believe in you, Max said simply. People who'd follow you into hell because they know you'll fight like hell to get them back out. The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Logan let Max's words sink in, the truth of them cutting through the fog of his doubt. Finally, Logan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. You're both really annoying, you know that? Hannah grinned. We try. Later, as the group gathered outside the cabin, Logan stepped forward, his presence commanding. We've been hit hard, he began, his voice steady. But we're still here, and as long as we're still standing, Cade doesn't win. Tonight we take the fight to him, not for revenge, but to protect the people he's trying to destroy, to protect what's ours. The pack murmured their agreement, the energy in the group shifting from despair to determination. Logan's gaze landed on Hannah, her quiet strength grounding him. We move out in an hour, he said, his voice firm. Let's finish this. Chapter 31. The cabin buzzed with a new kind of energy, purposeful, tense, and charged with determination. Logan stood at the center of the room, his golden eyes scanning the gathered faces. His pack, his people, were here because they believed in him, even after everything. He cleared his throat, and the low hum of conversation died instantly. The weight of their attention settled over him, but instead of doubt, he felt resolve. We've all lost something to Cade, Logan began, his voice steady and carrying across the room. He's taken from us. Our homes, our safety, people we care about. But tonight, we take something back. We take back our strength, our unity, and our freedom. Hannah stood near the edge of the crowd, her heart swelling with pride as she watched Logan command the room. The hesitation and self-doubt that had plagued him days ago seemed to melt away under the force of his conviction. We know where Cade is, Logan continued, motioning to the map spread across the table. He's holed up in a fortified facility deep in rogue territory. It's a trap, sure, but it's one we're walking into prepared. Max stepped forward, pointing to the map. The main structure is surrounded by patrols, but there's a weakness here, an access point through an underground system. We'll use that to get in, plant charges to disable his operation, and confront Cade directly." As Logan outlined the plan, Hannah noticed several of the pack members glancing at her. At first, she thought it was skepticism, but as she stepped forward to add her insights to the strategy, those glances turned into nods of respect. "We know Cade's plan hinges on creating hybrids," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. "That means he's focused on me. If we can use that to draw him out, we'll have the upper hand." A murmur rippled through the group. One of the younger wolves, a wiry man named Ethan, spoke up. "You're willing to put yourself in that kind of danger?" Hannah met his gaze without hesitation. "If it means stopping Cade, yes." Logan's chest tightened at her words. While he admired her courage, the thought of her as bait twisted his gut, but he also knew she was right. "You'll have backup," Logan said, his voice firm. "No one's going in alone. We stick to the plan and we get out together." His pack murmured their agreement, the energy in the room shifting from uncertainty to determination. Later, as the group prepared for the mission, Logan found himself alone with Hannah near the weapons cache. She was checking the straps on a small pack when he approached. "You didn't have to do that," Logan said quietly. Hannah glanced up at him. "Do what?" "Step up like that," he replied. "They already respect you." Hannah smirked. "Respect is earned, remember? Besides, it's not about me. It's about showing them we're in this together." Logan nodded, his gaze lingering on her. "I meant what I said earlier. You're not going in alone." "I know," she said, her voice softening. "And neither are you." As night fell, the group gathered outside the cabin, their gear packed and their faces steeled for the task ahead. Logan stepped forward, his presence commanding. "This is it," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "We've prepared, we've planned, and now it's time to act. Stay sharp, stay together, and trust each other. Cade thinks he's untouchable, but tonight we prove him wrong." The pack howled in response, a chorus of strength and unity that sent a shiver down Hannah's spine. Logan's gaze locked onto hers as the group began to move out. "Stay close," he said, his voice low but firm. "Always," Hannah replied, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. The journey to Cade's stronghold was shrouded in tense silence, the group moving like shadows through the forest. Logan led the way, his senses sharp, his wolf prowling just beneath the surface. As they neared their destination, Logan glanced back at his team. The faces staring back at him weren't just allies, they were family. And tonight he would lead them not just as their alpha, but as a man who had finally accepted his place among them. "Let's finish this," Logan said, his voice a low growl that sent a ripple of anticipation through the group. The final confrontation was near, and for the first time, Logan felt ready, not just to fight, but to. Chapter 32. The moon hung low in the sky, its silvery glow filtering through the trees as Logan stood in the middle of the clearing. Around him, the pack gathered, a palpable tension hanging in the air. Tonight was a pivotal moment, not just for their survival but for their unity. Logan scanned the crowd, his golden eyes meeting each gaze. These were the wolves he had fought for, bled for, and, at times, pushed away. Tonight, he needed them to trust him, not just as their alpha, but as a leader who believed in them. "We've all lost something because of Cade," Logan began, his voice carrying through the stillness. "But this isn't just about revenge. It's about taking back what he's tried to steal. Our strength, our unity, and our freedom." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. Logan's gaze settled on Ethan, the younger wolf who had questioned his decisions earlier. "I need you to lead the second team. Logan, you've got the instincts, and the others trust you. Can I count on you?" Ethan blinked, clearly surprised by the responsibility, but he nodded. "Yeah, you can count on me." Logan nodded, turning to the others. "We do this together. No lone wolves. We stick to the plan and we fight like hell to come out the other side. As the pack dispersed to prepare, Logan approached the edge of the clearing where a rival alpha waited. Marcus Fane was a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver-streaked hair and a permanent scowl. His pack had also suffered at Cade's hands, making their alliance both necessary and tenuous. "You're asking a lot, Kane," Fane said, crossing his arms. "I'm asking for survival," Logan replied evenly. "Cade doesn't care about boundaries. If he wins, we all lose." Fane studied him for a moment before nodding. "We'll follow your lead, but if this goes sideways, we're pulling out." Logan nodded. "Fair enough." Back at the cabin, Hannah sat at the table, poring over the plans she had retrieved. Her fingers traced a diagram of Cade's base, her mind racing as she tried to piece together the rogue leader's defenses. "Got something?" Max asked, leaning over her shoulder. Hannah pointed to a narrow tunnel marked on the map. "Here. It's small, probably overlooked, but it connects to the main structure. If we can get through, we'll bypass most of their defenses." Max grinned. "Good eye. Logan's going to want to see this." Logan entered the cabin moments later, his presence filling the room. Hannah looked up, her heart tightening at the sight of him. He looked worn but determined, his shoulders squared and his eyes sharp. "What did you find?" Logan asked, moving to her side. Hannah explained her discovery, tracing the path on the map with her finger. "It's risky, but it could give us the advantage we need." Logan nodded, his gaze lingering on her. "Good work." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the weight of the coming battle faded into the background. Later that evening, as the pack rested and prepared, Logan found Hannah sitting by the fire outside the cabin. The light danced across her face, highlighting the quiet strength he had come to admire. "You should get some rest," Logan said, sitting beside her. Hannah shook her head. Logan nodded, staring into the flames. "Same." The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. "I'm scared, Logan," Hannah admitted softly. He looked at her, his golden eyes softening. "Me too." She turned to him, her voice trembling but steady. "But I'm not scared because I don't believe in us. I'm scared because I do. I believe in you, in the pack, in what we're fighting for, and that makes it harder." Logan's chest tightened. "You've been the strongest of all of us, Hannah. Even when I tried to push you away, you stayed." "Because I care about you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I'm not going anywhere." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Logan reached out, his hand brushing against hers. The contact sent a spark through him, and he knew this wasn't just about protecting her anymore. "I need you," Logan said, his voice raw. "Not just for the fight, for me." Hannah's breath caught as his words settled over her. "Then stop holding back," she said, her voice steady. "I'm here, Logan. I'm yours, if you'll have me." Logan didn't hesitate. He leaned in, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was both tender and fierce. It was a declaration, a promise, and a release of everything they had been holding back. The world around them faded as they gave in to the pull between them. Logan's wolf surged beneath the surface, his instincts recognizing what his heart already knew. Hannah was his. As the night deepened, they solidified their bond, their connection becoming something unbreakable. Logan felt his strength surge, his resolve hardening. With Hannah by his side, he knew they could face whatever came next. Chapter 33. The air was thick with tension as Logan crouched behind a tree at the edge of Cade's stronghold. The fortified facility loomed ahead, an industrial behemoth surrounded by tall fences, floodlights sweeping the perimeter. The distant hum of generators underscored the occasional growl of rogue shifters patrolling the area. Hannah knelt beside him, her breath steady, despite the weight of what was about to happen. Logan glanced at her, his golden eyes catching the faint moonlight. "Last chance to back out," he murmured. Hannah arched an eyebrow. "Not a chance." A faint smirk tugged at Logan's lips. Didn't think so. Max signaled from a few yards away, his hand sweeping low to indicate that the first patrol had passed. Logan motioned for the team to move, their silent forms slipping through the shadows like predators closing in on their prey. Hannah's discovery of the hidden tunnel had been a game-changer, and now they moved with purpose, knowing exactly where to strike. The tunnel's entrance was concealed beneath a tangle of overgrown brush just outside the fence line. Logan reached it first, clearing the brush with quiet efficiency. He gestured for Hannah to follow, his hand briefly brushing against hers. The contact was grounding, a silent reminder of their shared purpose. Inside the tunnel, the air was damp and heavy, the walls close enough to feel claustrophobic. Hannah kept close to Logan, her eyes darting to the shadows that seemed to stretch and shift around them. "You doing okay?" Logan whispered, his voice low but steady. "I'm fine," she replied, gripping the knife at her side. "Just hoping this doesn't end with us trapped in here." "It won't," Logan said, his confidence unwavering. "We're getting out of this, all of us." The team emerged into a storage room, dimly lit and filled with crates marked with Cade's insignia. Logan raised a hand, signaling for the others to hold. His sharp senses picked up the faint sounds of movement beyond the door. Max moved to his side, a small smirk playing on his lips. "Ready to make some noise?" Logan nodded. "Let's shut 'em down." The assault was swift and precise. Logan's team split into two groups, each targeting a critical part of the facility. Explosions rocked the compound as carefully placed charges detonated, plunging sections of the stronghold into darkness. Logan led the charge into the main corridor, his movements a blur of strength and precision. Rogues surged toward them, their snarls echoing through the chaos. Logan met them head-on, his claws tearing through their ranks with calculated ferocity. Hannah, stationed near the freed captives, held her ground as a rogue broke through the defenses. The wolf lunged at her, its claws slicing through the air. Hannah ducked and drove her blade upward, the silver catching the light as it plunged into the rogue's side. The shifter howled, collapsing at her feet. A pack member, bloodied but alive, gave her a nod of thanks before returning to the fight. "Nice work," Max called as he passed, his blade dripping with blood. Hannah's chest heaved, her adrenaline surging. "Let's keep it that way." By the time the group reached the control room, the stronghold was in chaos. The freed captives had been ushered to safety, and the facility's defenses were crumbling. Logan stood at the center of the room, surveying the damage with a grim sense of satisfaction. "We've got a foothold," Max said, wiping sweat from his brow. "This place is ours." Logan nodded, but his focus remained on the screens lining the walls. The feeds showed the havoc they'd unleashed, but also something else. Cade's forces regrouping deeper within the compound. "This isn't over," Logan said, his voice low. Hannah stepped to his side, her presence steadying him. "Then let's finish it." Logan's gaze softened as he looked at her. "We will. Together." The team gathered, their resolve unshaken despite the battle ahead. They had taken the first step, but the war was far from won. As Logan led them into the depths of the facility, he felt the weight of his role settle over him. But for the first time, it felt right. He was an alpha, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 34. The hallway leading deeper into Cade's stronghold was narrow and dimly lit, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood and sweat. Logan signaled for the group to halt, his sharp eyes scanning the space ahead. Every nerve in his body was on high alert, his wolf senses attuned to the slightest sound or scent of danger. Behind him, Hannah tightened her grip on her blade, her heart pounding but her focus unwavering. Max moved beside her, his presence a steadying force as he hefted a makeshift shield in one hand and a silver-edged sword in the other. "This is where it gets ugly," Max muttered under his breath. Logan nodded. "Stay sharp. They know we're coming." The ambush came fast. A deafening roar echoed through the corridor as rogue shifters poured in from hidden passageways, their eyes wild with bloodlust. Logan surged forward, his claws extending as he met the first wave head-on. "Max, take the left flank," Logan barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Max responded without hesitation, leading a small group of fighters to counter the rogue's assault. The sound of snarls and the clash of metal against claws filled the air. Logan moved with precision, his every strike calculated to incapacitate or kill. He had fought countless battles, but this one felt different. The stakes were higher, the weight of leadership heavier than ever. "Hannah!" he shouted, spotting a rogue circling toward her. She turned just in time, ducking under the rogue's swing and driving her blade upward. The wolf yelped as the silver bit into its side, and Hannah kicked it away with surprising force. Logan felt a surge of pride and a flicker of fear. She was holding her own, but the danger was undeniable. As the tide of rogues began to thin, a hulking figure stepped into the corridor. Cade's lieutenant, a towering shifter with a jagged scar across his chest, grinned wickedly. "Well, well," the lieutenant drawled, his voice a low growl. "The mighty Logan Kane. Thought you'd storm in here and save the day?" Logan's eyes narrowed. "That's the plan." The lieutenant laughed, the sound cold and cruel. "You're too late. Cade's already set things in motion, and when he's done, there won't be a pack left to lead." The two clashed with a ferocity that shook the walls. Logan's claws raked across the lieutenant's side, but the rogue retaliated with a bone-crushing blow that sent Logan staggering. Hannah's heart lurched as she watched the fight unfold. The lieutenant was larger and more brutal than any shifter she'd seen, but Logan fought with a determination that was almost frightening. "Logan, look out!" she shouted, throwing her blade with pinpoint accuracy. The silver-tipped knife embedded itself in the lieutenant's shoulder, giving Logan the opening he needed. He lunged, delivering a final devastating blow that left the rogue crumpled on the ground. Breathing heavily, Logan turned to Hannah. "Nice throw." She offered a faint smile, her face pale but resolute. "We're not done yet." Max joined them, blood streaking his face but his grin intact. "That was impressive. But we've got bigger problems." He held up a crumpled piece of paper he'd pulled from the lieutenant's pocket. The hastily scrawled notes detailed a fallback plan. Cade intended to unleash chaos by using a captured alpha as bait, drawing the remaining packs into a deadly trap. Logan's jaw tightened as he scanned the document. "We need to stop this. Now." The group pressed on, the resistance growing fiercer with every step. Logan delegated tasks with the ease of someone who had finally embraced his role as a leader. "Ethan, take your team to the lower level and disable their generators," Logan ordered. "Hannah, stay with Max and cover the captives. I'll handle Cade." Hannah stepped closer, her expression fierce. "We're doing this together!" Logan hesitated, torn between his instinct to protect her and the knowledge that they were stronger as a team. "Stay close," he said finally. The chapter ended with the group reaching the heart of the stronghold, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Logan pushed open the heavy doors to Cade's inner sanctum, his chest tightening as he prepared for the confrontation that would decide everything. They had come too far to turn back now. Chapter 35. The heavy steel doors groaned as Logan pushed them open, revealing the cavernous heart of Cade's stronghold. The room was dimly lit, the glow of flickering monitors casting eerie shadows across the walls. The air was oppressive, thick with the acrid scent of sweat and blood. Cade stood at the far end, his towering figure silhouetted against the screens. He turned slowly, a cruel smile spreading across his face as Logan stepped into the room. "Well, if it isn't the mighty Logan Kane," Cade drawled, his voice laced with mockery. "I was beginning to think you'd never make it." Logan growled low in his throat, his claws flexing at his sides. "Let her go!" Cade gestured to his right, where Hannah was bound to a metal chair, her wrists and ankles restrained with heavy chains. Her face was pale but defiant, her eyes locking onto Logan's with a mixture of fear and determination. "Ah, yes, you're a little human," Cade said, circling Hannah like a predator. "She's quite the prize, isn't she? Strong, resilient, perfect for my plans." Logan took a step forward, his voice a low snarl. "Touch her, and I'll rip your throat out." Cade laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "You're so predictable, Cain. Always leading with brute force, never stopping to think." He leaned down, his face close to Hannah. "You see, she's more valuable than you realize. With her genetics, I'll create an army. Stronger, faster, better than anything you or your pathetic pack could ever hope to be." Logan lunged, his claws slashing through the air, but Cade sidestepped with ease, laughing as he delivered a brutal punch to Logan's side. "You've already lost," Cade taunted, his golden eyes gleaming. "You just don't know it yet." Logan staggered, his ribs screaming in protest, but he refused to fall. He glanced at Hannah, her gaze steady despite the terror etched on her face. "Don't listen to him, Logan," she shouted. "You're stronger than he is." Cade sneered, delivering a vicious kick that sent Logan crashing into a metal support beam. "Stronger? Look at you, Cain. You can barely stand. You've always been weak, too soft, too afraid to do what needs to be done." Logan's vision blurred, but Cade's words cut deeper than the physical blows. He had spent so long doubting himself, questioning his ability to lead and protect, but as she believed in him, and that belief was stronger than any of Cade's taunts. With a guttural roar, Logan surged to his feet, his claws slashing across Cade's chest. The rogue alpha snarled, staggering back as blood seeped through his torn shirt. "You don't know anything about strength," Logan growled, his voice steady now. "Strength isn't about domination. It's about protecting the people who matter." Cade's eyes narrowed, his expression darkening. "Then let's see how well you protect her." He snapped his fingers, and the room filled with the sound of heavy boots. Rogues flooded in from hidden passages, their snarls echoing through the chamber. Logan's heart sank as he realized the trap Cade had laid. The rogues surrounded him, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust. "Kill him!" Cade commanded, his voice cold and final. Logan barely had time to react before the first rogue lunged. He fought with everything he had, his claws tearing through flesh, but the sheer number of attackers was overwhelming. In the chaos, Hannah struggled against her restraints, her mind racing. She saw Logan falter under the weight of the onslaught, his movements slowing as exhaustion took hold. "Logan!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the din. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. "I'm not giving up," he growled, more to himself than anyone else. The chapter ended with Logan pushed to his knees, blood streaming from countless wounds. Cade stood over him, a victorious sneer on his face as the rogues surrounded them. "You fought well, Cain," Cade said, his voice dripping with condescension. "But this is where it ends." As Cade raised his hand, signaling the final blow, Logan's gaze shifted to Hannah. Her determination, her fire, was the spark he needed. The battle wasn't over. Not yet. Chapter 36. The cavernous room grew colder, darker, as Logan lay sprawled on the blood-stained floor. Pain lanced through every inch of his body, his breath shallow, his vision blurry. He could hear Cade's mocking laughter echoing like a drumbeat of his failure. "Look at you," Cade sneered, circling Logan like a predator savoring its kill. "The mighty Alpha brought to his knees. You were never strong enough, Cain. Never." Logan struggled to push himself up, but his arms gave out beneath him. His wolf growled weakly within, its once ferocious strength now dimmed. In the corner of the room, Hannah sat bound and battered, her face pale but defiant. Her gaze locked on Logan, and though her body was restrained, her spirit was unbroken. "Don't listen to him," she shouted, her voice cracking but fierce. "You're not done, Logan. You've never been done." Cade chuckled, turning his attention to her. "Still so loyal, it's almost pathetic." He crouched in front of her, his cruel eyes gleaming. "Do you know what I see when I look at him? A failure. A man who couldn't protect his pack, his mate, or himself." Logan's chest tightened at the word mate, the weight of his bond with Hannah cutting through the fog of despair. Cade rose, pacing leisurely. "And you, Hannah, you're more than I ever hoped for. With your unique gifts, I'll build an army unlike anything this world has ever seen." He turned to Logan, his grin sharp as a blade. "And you'll be alive just long enough to see it happen." Logan's fists clenched, his nails digging into the floor. He could feel the pull of despair dragging him down, Cade's taunts slicing through his already fragile confidence. "You're wrong," Logan muttered, his voice low but growing stronger. Cade paused, cocking his head. "What was that?" Logan forced himself to his knees, his head lifting to meet Cade's gaze. "You're wrong," he repeated, his voice steadier now. "You think strength is about control, about fear, but it's not." "Oh, do enlighten me," Cade said, feigning interest. Logan's gaze shifted to Hannah, her unwavering belief in him sparking something deep within. "Strength is about trust, about the people who stand beside you, not beneath you." He pushed himself to his feet, his body screaming in protest, but his resolve burning bright. "You've spent your whole life tearing people down, Cade. But me? I'm just getting started building them up." Cade's sneer twisted into a snarl. Brave words for a dead man. The rogues surged forward at Cade's command, but this time Logan didn't falter. He met the first attacker head-on, his claws ripping through flesh with renewed ferocity. "Max, now!" Logan roared. A deafening explosion rocked the facility as Max and the others triggered the charges they'd planted earlier. Smoke and debris filled the air, disorienting the rogues and giving Logan's team the opening they needed. Logan fought like a man possessed, every blow a testament to the bond he shared with his pack and his mate. Hannah's voice echoed in his mind, her belief in him fueling his every move. But even as the tide began to turn, Cade stood untouched, his smirk widening as the chaos unfolded. "You think this changes anything?" Cade shouted over the din. "You're too late, Kane. I've already won." Logan turned to face him, his chest heaving, blood streaking his face. "Not while I'm still breathing." The battle raged on, but Logan could feel the weight of Cade's plan pressing down on them. His allies were faltering, their strength waning against the seemingly endless wave of rogues. Hannah, watching helplessly, saw the cracks in Logan's armor, the strain, the doubt, the fear. "Logan!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You're not alone!" Those words hit him like a bolt of lightning. He wasn't alone. He never had been. The chapter ended with Logan standing tall, his resolve unshaken despite the odds. Cade's forces were regrouping, the rogue alpha's laughter echoing through the chaos. But Logan wasn't done. Not yet. Chapter 37. The acrid smell of blood and smoke filled the air as Logan remained on his knees, his breaths ragged and labored. Cade loomed above him, his golden eyes gleaming with triumph. Behind Cade, Hannah's muffled cries tore through the chaos, her fear cutting deeper than any wound. Logan closed his eyes, shutting out the world. He wasn't strong enough, not alone, but then, through the din of despair, Hannah's voice echoed in his mind. Words she had spoken in a moment of quiet resolve. "You're not supposed to do this alone. Stop acting like you have to carry it all by yourself." The truth hit him like a thunderbolt. For too long he had fought to keep everyone at arm's length, believing that relying on others was a weakness. But it wasn't. His strength wasn't just his own. It was the bond he shared with his pack, his allies, and her. His wolf stirred, its presence a steady growl in his mind. They believe in us. It's time to believe in them. Logan opened his eyes, golden and glowing with renewed fire. Cade stopped mid-taunt, his smug grin faltering as Logan pushed himself to his feet, bloodied but unbroken. "You think this is over, Cade?" Logan growled, his voice steady now, carrying the weight of his resolve. "It's not." Cade sneered, but there was unease in his stance. Bold words from a dead man walking. "Let's find out," Logan said, his voice low and dangerous. Logan tilted his head back and let out a howl, a sound so deep and powerful it reverberated through the stronghold and beyond. The alpha bond surged through him, a lifeline connecting him to his pack. He could feel their presence like a heartbeat, their loyalty flooding back in waves. From the shadows, howls answered his call. The rogue Max led the charge, his blade flashing as he dispatched 2 rogues with brutal efficiency. "About time you called for backup," Max said with a grin, his eyes glinting with battle-ready focus. The tide of the fight shifted. Logan moved with renewed energy, his claws slashing through rogue after rogue. Every blow was deliberate, his strikes fueled by the strength of the pack surrounding him. "Hannah," he called, his voice cutting through the chaos. She turned, her eyes widening as she saw him fighting his way toward her. Using the distraction, she twisted her wrists, dislocating one hand just enough to slip free of the restraints. She grabbed a shard of metal from the floor, her grip steady despite the blood smearing her palm. A rogue lunged for her, its jaws snapping, but Hannah ducked low and drove the shard into its throat. The creature collapsed, and she didn't hesitate, kicking its body aside as she freed herself completely. "I'm not sitting this one out," she muttered, picking up the fallen rogue's weapon and charging into the fray. Logan's chest swelled with pride as he caught sight of her, fighting alongside his pack like she belonged there, like she always had. Cade, however, was far from finished. With a snarl, he leapt into the fray, his claws aiming for Logan's throat. The 2 alphas collided, their roars shaking the walls. "You'll never win, Kane," Cade snarled, his strength monstrous as he forced Logan back. "You're weak, always have been." Logan gritted his teeth, his muscles straining as he shoved Cade away. "You're wrong. Weakness is thinking you can do this alone. Strength is knowing you don't have to." Cade lunged again, but this time Logan was ready. He feinted to the left, catching Cade off guard, and delivered a devastating blow to his ribs. Hannah joined the fight, her blade slicing at Cade's flank, forcing him to split his focus. Max and the rest of the pack closed in, their unity overwhelming the remaining rogues. Logan landed a final punch, sending Cade crashing to the ground. The rogue alpha growled, blood dripping from his mouth, but the fight in his eyes was dimming. The battle ended in a tense silence, the floor littered with the bodies of rogues. Logan stood over Cade, his chest heaving, his golden eyes glowing with triumph. Hannah stepped beside him, her hand brushing against his arm, grounding him. "We did it," she said softly, her voice filled with awe and relief. "No," Logan said, his gaze locking onto hers. "We did it." Chapter 38. The air in the collapsing facility was thick with smoke and chaos. Logan's heart pounded as he led his pack through the final corridor, their collective strength driving them forward. The walls trembled with the force of detonations, each explosion signaling the dismantling of Cade's empire. "Hannah!" Logan shouted over the din, scanning the haze for her familiar form. "I'm here," she called back, emerging from the shadows with Max by her side. Her face was streaked with grime, her knife clutched tightly in her hand, but her eyes burned with determination. Logan's chest tightened with relief. "Stay close. This ends now." They burst into the central chamber, where Cade stood on an elevated platform surrounded by the remnants of his rogue forces. His golden eyes gleamed with fury and desperation, his once imposing figure now a shadow of its former power. "You think you've won?" Cade snarled, his voice echoing through the cavernous room. "Even if you kill me, I've already set things in motion. Your world will burn." Logan's gaze never wavered. "Not if I stop you first." Cade lunged, his claws slicing through the air as he met Logan head-on. Their bodies collided with a force that shook the ground, each alpha unleashing every ounce of their strength. The battle was brutal, a clash of wills and instincts. Logan fought with precision, his movements fueled by the lessons of his past and the bond he now fully embraced with his pack. "You've already lost," Cade hissed, his claws raking across Logan's chest. "You're nothing but a failed leader." Logan gritted his teeth, shoving Cade back. "You're wrong. I'm not alone anymore. That's what makes me stronger than you." As the 2 alphas fought, Hannah and the others worked to secure the room. Max led a small group against the remaining rogues, their coordination a testament to Logan's leadership. Hannah spotted a control panel near the platform, wires sparking from its damaged interface. A memory from the stolen plans flashed through her mind. This was the key to shutting down Cade's fallback systems. "Cover me!" she shouted, darting toward the panel. Max blocked an advancing rogue with his blade, shouting back, "Make it quick!" Hannah's fingers flew across the controls, her mind racing as she deciphered the system. The screen blinked with warnings, but she focused on the task, her determination unwavering. Behind her, Logan and Cade's battle raged on. Cade gained the upper hand, pinning Logan to the ground with a triumphant snarl. "Say goodbye, Kane," Cade growled, his claws poised for the final strike. Logan's mind raced, his body screaming in protest as Cade's weight pressed down on him. Then, through the haze of pain, he felt it. A surge of energy, the bond with his pack roaring to life. The bond wasn't just a connection. It was strength. It was unity. It was Hannah. With a feral growl, Logan surged upward, throwing Kay off him. He didn't hesitate, his claws striking true as he delivered a devastating blow to Cade's chest. At that moment, the control panel beeped, and Hannah shouted, "It's done! The system's offline!" The facility shuddered violently as the last of the rogue defenses crumbled. The remaining rogues faltered, their resolve breaking as their leader fell. Cade staggered, blood dripping from his wounds. His eyes met Logan's, filled with hatred and disbelief. "This isn't over," he rasped. Logan stepped forward, his voice low but unyielding. "Yes, it is." With one final strike, he ended Cade's reign. As the facility began to collapse around them, Logan grabbed Hannah's hand, pulling her close. "We need to move. Now!" The pack retreated through the crumbling corridors, their movements swift and coordinated. Logan led them out into the cool night air, the stars above a stark contrast to the chaos they left behind. Outside, the pack regrouped, their breaths heavy but their spirits unbroken. Logan stood at the center, his arm wrapped protectively around Hannah. "It's over," Max said, his voice tinged with relief. Logan nodded, his golden eyes meeting each member of his pack. "We did this together, all of us." His gaze shifted to Hannah, her presence grounding him. "And it's just the beginning." Hannah smiled, leaning into him. "Together," she echoed. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Logan knew they had won. Not just the battle, but the fight for their future. Chapter 39. The pack's safe house was quiet, the kind of quiet that came only after a storm. The large, rustic cabin nestled deep in the forest felt more like a sanctuary now, its sturdy walls a barrier between them and the chaos they had survived. Logan stood by the window, his hands resting on the sill as he stared out at the moonlit woods. The scent of pine and damp earth was calming, but his thoughts were anything but. Behind him, the low murmur of conversation drifted from the main room, where the pack sat in a loose circle, tending to wounds and sharing stories of the battle. Their laughter, faint but real, was a reminder that they had made it through, together. But not everyone had. "You should be resting," Hannah's voice broke through the stillness, soft but firm. Logan turned, his golden eyes meeting hers. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, a faint bruise on her cheek a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. "I could say the same to you," Logan replied, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. Hannah stepped into the room, her footsteps quiet against the wooden floor. "I couldn't sleep, too much on my mind." Logan nodded, his gaze returning to the window. "Yeah, same here." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of what they had been through hung between them, unspoken but deeply felt. "We lost some good people," Logan said finally, his voice low. "Too many." Hannah moved to stand beside him, her shoulder brushing against his arm. "But we saved so many more." "You saved them, Logan." He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "Not alone. I couldn't have done this without you, without the pack." "You don't have to do it alone," she said softly. Logan turned to face her fully, his eyes searching hers. "For a long time, I thought I did. I thought being strong meant keeping everyone at arm's length. But you proved me wrong." Hannah smiled faintly, her fingers brushing against his. "Guess I'm good at that." He let out a quiet laugh, the sound easing some of the tension in his chest. "Yeah, you are." In the main room, Max's gruff voice rose above the others, drawing their attention. "Hey, Kane, we're doing a toast. You coming? Or what?" Logan glanced at Hannah, a question in his eyes. She nodded, and together they joined the others. The pack gathered around the large, worn table, cups filled with whatever they could scavenge from the safe house's supplies. Max raised his cup, his sharp gaze sweeping over the group. "To survival," he said, his voice steady. "To the ones we lost, and the ones we still have. And to an alpha who finally got his head out of his ass." Laughter rippled through the room, and Logan shook his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Thanks, Max. Always a poet." As the group toasted and shared stories, Logan felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. This wasn't just his pack. It was his family, and for the first time, he felt like he truly belonged. Later, as the others drifted off to rest, Logan and Hannah found themselves alone again. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, its warmth a comforting presence in the quiet room. "You could have left, you know," Logan said, breaking the silence. "You didn't have to stay and fight." Hannah tilted her head, her gaze steady. "And go back to what? Running? Hiding? I've spent too much of my life trying to survive. Here, with you, with the pack, I finally feel like I'm living." Logan's chest tightened, her words striking a chord deep within him. "You're part of this now, part of us." She smiled, her hand resting lightly on his. "I know." The room fell quiet again, but this time the silence was comfortable. Logan leaned back, his gaze on the fire. "You're not afraid of what's next?" Hannah shook her head. "No, not anymore." Logan turned to her, his expression softening. "Me neither." The chapter ended with Logan and Hannah sitting together, the firelight casting a warm glow over them. For the first time in a long while, the future felt like something worth fighting for. Chapter 40. The forest was quiet in the pre-dawn hours, the crisp air carrying the earthy scent of pine and damp soil. Logan stood at the edge of the clearing, the safe house behind him now filled with the hushed murmurs of his resting pack. The soft rustle of leaves in the breeze was a gentle reminder of life continuing, even after everything they had lost. The events of the last few days weighed on him, but for the first time, the weight didn't feel crushing. It felt purposeful. Hannah appeared beside him, her steps light but sure. Her presence was grounding, a constant reminder of why he had fought so hard. "You're up early," she said, her voice soft but teasing. Logan turned to her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind." She raised an eyebrow. "Still overthinking everything, huh? Old habits die hard," he admitted. They stood in silence for a moment, watching as the sky began to shift from deep indigo to a pale, hopeful blue. The first hints of dawn painted the horizon, promising a new day. "I used to think strength meant shutting everyone out," Logan said suddenly, his voice quiet but steady. "That it meant carrying everything alone." Hannah turned to him, her expression soft but searching. "But I was wrong," he continued. "Strength isn't about shutting people out. It's about letting them in, trusting them, trusting you." Hannah reached out, her hand brushing against his. "You've come a long way, Logan Kane." He chuckled softly. "Couldn't have done it without you." "You would have," she said, her tone firm, "but I'm glad I was here to help." Logan's chest tightened as he looked at her, the first rays of sunlight catching in her hair. She was everything he hadn't realized he needed. Fierce, loyal, unyielding. His mate. The pack gathered later that morning in the clearing, a somber yet united group. A fire burned at the center, its flames crackling softly as they honored those they had lost. Max stepped forward, his voice gruff but steady as he addressed the group. "We've been through hell, but we're still here, and we'll keep going, because that's what packs do. We fight, we survive, We rebuild. Logan nodded, stepping beside him. And we do it together, he said, his voice carrying a quiet strength. For those we've lost, and for the future we're building. The pack howled as one, their voices rising to the sky in a tribute that echoed through the forest. That evening, as the stars blanketed the sky, Logan led Hannah to a secluded spot by the river. The water shimmered in the moonlight, its gentle current a soothing backdrop to the night. Hannah sat beside him on the moss-covered ground, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and hope. Logan turned to her, his golden eyes warm. "Now we live, we rebuild, and we keep fighting for what matters." Hannah tilted her head, her eyes searching his. "And us?" Logan's gaze softened, his hand reaching up to brush a strand of hair from her face. "You're my mate, Hannah. There's no me without us." Her breath hitched as he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low rumble. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and fierce, a culmination of everything they had endured and everything they had become. The mate bond surged between them, a connection that went beyond words, beyond thought, a union of souls. Logan pulled her closer, his hands trailing along her back as he deepened the kiss. The world around them faded, leaving only the warmth of each other's touch and the steady rhythm of their hearts beating in sync. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the stars, Logan traced patterns along her skin, his voice a low murmur. "I used to think I was broken, that being alone was the only way to survive." Hannah turned to him, her fingers brushing against his jaw. "You're not broken, Logan. You never were." He smiled, his golden eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "You healed me, you saved me, and you saved me," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As the first rays of dawn painted the horizon, Logan held her close, the warmth of her body grounding him in the moment. For the first time in his life, he wasn't looking back or ahead, he was simply here with her. Together, they watched the sunrise, its golden light spilling over the trees, a symbol of hope, love, and a new beginning. The end.